Peacock is the first free US streaming service, and soon there will be premiere a series called True Colors, which is about the story of 8 Latin American figures, and one of them is today's special guest. Not every day one has the opportunity to speak with a person who has been literally out of this planet. She was in the NASA STS-56 Discovery mission in 1993 and many others after that. And right now I have the privilege to talk with former astronaut and proudly Latin Dr. Ellen Ochoa. Hi, Helen, how are you?
Hi, so nice to be here with you.
Such an honor to have this opportunity because there's a lot of questions I want to ask you. I hope there's time for them, but the main reason is to speak about the premiere of True Colors, which
Yes.
episode 1, it's about your story and being the first woman with Latin heritage in space. So that's gotta be a big deal. Can you tell us a little bit more about it, your mission and your background, please?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was so glad that when True Colors picked out 8 people to profile, they did them from a whole variety of different areas, right? Sports, politics, entertainment. And I was really glad they looked for somebody in science and engineering, because sometimes that can be overlooked. And as you know, we don't have nearly enough either Hispanic people or women that really go into that field. And I was just so fortunate to spend 30 years at NASA. I started there as an engineer. And I had already put in my application to be an astronaut, but kind of never really expected to get selected because so many people apply. But I was fortunate enough to be selected. I was on 4 different space shuttle missions. 2 of them were studying the Earth's atmosphere, and 2 of them were part of assembling the International Space Station. And then I got to go into leadership positions, including my final job at NASA was as director of Johnson Space Center in Houston.
Of course, that's gotta be so great, because I have the record right here that you have been spending time in outer space, like around 41 days. That's correct, right?
Yes, so 4 missions, and they were all 9, 10, or 11 days. So it added up to about 41 days.
And what can you tell us about your Latin heritage? I mean, I kind of investigate about it. Your grandfathers are from Sonora, right?
My dad's parents, yes.
Your dad's parents, yeah.
Were from Sonora. And my dad was the youngest of 12. So by the time he was born, they had already emigrated to the US and were living in Southern California.
Ellen, I know you've been asked this question many times. I don't know how many, but what I want to know, do you still remember, how do you feel being out of space for the first time? I mean, I would be terrified to the bone seeing myself thousands and thousands of miles away from my planet. I'll be panicked. What do you think when you were there at the first time?
Well, I wasn't scared. I was just completely excited to be there, but of course, very focused on the job that I needed to do. And really the reason I wasn't scared was because, I mean, I had been in training at NASA. I'd been an astronaut almost 3 years and spent the vast majority of that time training. So, I think when you know what you're going to face and also how to work through a lot of different problems that might crop up, that's what really prevents you from being scared. So really it just turned into, in many ways, a magical experience, being able to look at the Earth from space and of course floating in a zero gravity environment. But I will also say it was just mentally very tiring because, every minute that you were awake, you were doing something and you were concentrating really hard on it to make sure you were doing it correctly. And, looking for all of the, signs and feedback that everything was going the way you wanted it to go.
That's so amazing. And being an astronaut, was it something that popped out of your mind when you were little, or did you have your career decided when you were after the high school? How did you choose to follow these steps, this path?
Yeah, it was much later when I was in graduate school, and I think it was when I was young. There weren't any women astronauts. Certainly no astronauts of Hispanic heritage as well. So it wasn't until I was about halfway through my undergrad when the first women and minority astronauts were selected, and I had really just started studying science at that point, just selected physics as my major. So I couldn't hardly even think beyond, just what it was going to take to graduate, right? But I got interested in research and I went off to graduate school. And that's when the space shuttle started flying. And a couple years later is when Sally Ride flew, first American woman in space. And then after that, Franklin Chang Diaz, who was the first NASA astronaut of Hispanic heritage. So, all of these things were kind of lining up for me to come around to think about, well, gosh, maybe this is something I actually could do.
And something that many people see it like unreachable, like a dream that I cannot get, or what do I have to do to work the correct steps to follow in order to be like her? You are admired by so many people, and you're an example for the Latin women right now, many other children maybe too, for following their dreams. So thank you for that.
Well, I looked at what some of these people like Sally Ride and Franklin Chang Diaz had done. And of course, it was a lot of education, and they both had PhDs in physics or related subjects. And so I was already on my way toward doing that. And so realized that at least I was eligible. I still thought I would never get selected because it just seemed, like you say, impossible. But at least I was sort of taking that really important step regarding my education.
And after the 4 visions, how do you feel, and how did your life change after coming back to Earth from that? What were those things you realized in the way of thinking to mankind and the perception of people around you? Did it change a lot?
Well, you certainly look at the Earth differently. When you're orbiting every hour and a half, you cross the United States in 10 minutes. You really see it more as a complete system. And you realize that so much of what humans do is kind of develop these really artificial boundaries and constructs. And then they also probably aren't thinking enough about just taking care of the planet as well. So those are a couple main things that you really get from flying in space. And then back on the ground, I've had the opportunity over the last 30 years to, give hundreds of talks to students at schools, mostly schools with high Hispanic populations, a lot of after-school groups that try to, get science hands-on activities to students and things like that. So that's been a big change in my life after flying in space, and, really added to the whole role that I got to do as an astronaut.
Yeah, I could imagine that would be, I don't know, priceless for you, having visited many schools and participating in many programs. And what I want to ask you right now, it's how do you think about the women role right now, and also Hispanic women has changed in the past years, and what are the opportunities in the world nowadays for them?
Well, I think it's changed a lot during the time that I was at NASA. Certainly, not only are more women and Hispanics part of the workforce at NASA and in other places that hire scientists and engineers, but they've moved more into leadership positions as well. And that's what I didn't see when I first started at NASA. You didn't really see women in the leadership positions. They were really building up kind of, at the entry levels at that point. So there's been a ton of progress. Obviously, we still have a ways to go. In science and engineering, the workforce does not yet look like the demographics of the United States, but at least we are moving in that direction.
Yes, that's the responsibility that every one of us had with that. So that will be so great having you like giving these talks with younger people and inspiring them to follow their dreams. So that's about True Colors, right? This
Yes.
new series on Peacock that is going to be released, by the way, on November 12th. You can see them. You can see that for free in a couple of days. So you will be in the first episode, and we will get to know you better. And what is your background? What is your Latin heritage? And that is so great. And we thank you. We couldn't thank you enough for having us the opportunity to speak with you right now.
Well, thank you. It was very nice talking with you.
Okay. See you next time.